Yay! Whoa, why is my voice gone?
I don't know, you went like way up there.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 264. Holy moly.
Oh, holy
moly. Very excited about tonight's show because it's Western States Week. Let's be totally honest. If you didn't know already, on Saturday is one of the biggest races of the year, if not the biggest race of the year, ultra running distance-wise. The very first 100-mile race, Western States, taking place in Squaw Valley, or starting in Squaw Valley and ending in Auburn. It is an exciting field this year, and we have an individual on the show tonight who is not only towing the line and racing Western States, but yeah, that's it. He's running Western, but he has a lot of really great insight as to the rest of the field that'll be out there, both men and women. We're doing kind of a hot take Western States preview show tonight with our very good friend Chris Mocko, also known as the Mocko Show. Should be a really exciting show. I'm of all the guests that we were like, well, who should we get on the week of the race? I was like, Chris Mocko. He's gonna be great. So we're gonna get some hot takes with the man himself here in just a couple of seconds. But sit back, relax, everyone. Welcome to Ginger Runner Live. Very excited to have you join us. Here we go. Ginger Runner. Yay! What is up, everyone? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live. It's a lot of emphasis behind that one. A lot of strength and power. Welcome, everyone, to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 264. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy Mondays to spend a little bit of it with us. Tonight, I'm pretty excited.
You are? Can't tell.
Can't tell. I've been talking fast all day, and whenever I talk fast, it's usually because I'm really excited about something. Tonight is one of those episodes that I'm just like, this is going to be easy. It's just going to be fun. Our guest is Chris Mocko, also known as the Mocko Show. He's an incredible athlete, runner, ultra runner. He's running the Western States 100 this weekend. In case you didn't know, everyone calls it Statesmas, including our guest. Is
something happening this weekend?
Yeah, there's a little something.
I haven't heard anything about it.
A little 100-mile race that takes place in Squaw Valley all the way to Auburn through some of the hot canyons. Apparently, there's going to be some snow this year, some river crossings, all sorts of stuff. It's one of the most historic, if not the most historic, 100-mile race in existence. And we like to preview it every year. We like to bring on guests that have run it in the past or who are running it that coming race. We also like to bring on guests after the event to talk about what their experience was like. But tonight, we're going to talk all about who is running Western States, who are our predictions, who we're going to be following. And our guest tonight is also running Chris Mocko, as I mentioned. And he's going to give us some hot takes. That's one of the reasons why I really wanted to bring Chris on, is because he's so fun, lighthearted, and funny that just getting some hot takes on what he thinks is going to happen in the valleys and the canyons this weekend at Western States, it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
But of course, it's not just myself, your host. We also have Kim.
It's also me.
Hi. How are you?
Good. The chat group.
The chat group. It's the group of room.
We're nailing it today.
Mm-hmm.
The chat room is already abuzz. People are wondering how many Mocko family members are going to show up to the chat room tonight.
Well, we've got some Mocko family members here in our house. Chris doesn't know this yet, but
they are all, come on.
No, they're locked in the other room. Chris has to nail these questions tonight, or we might just have to have pancakes with his family without him.
Ooh.
Is Gus okay?
Yes.
Our dog, as always, has chosen to make now the time that he's going crazy. It's okay.
Anyways, I am in the chat room.
Yes.
If you guys have questions for our wonderful guest, Chris, please pop them into the chat room.
So, of course, we are live. Bring on those questions for Chris once we introduce him here in just a second. But before we do, as always, we have some individuals that we like to thank on Ginger Runner Live. And those are our Patreon supporters, those who support us at all levels, month after month. It is because of them that these shows are able to happen. We are able to do this full time. So we do live shows every week. Reviews, films. We just dropped our Tiger Claw race recap film last week.
Yes.
It is all because of our Patreon supporters. So big shout out to all of them. 3 individuals in particular at that top tier are just incredibly generous with their commitment to us and what we do here. Chris Lee in Hong Kong. Chris is a fantastic member of the community, organizes a group in Hong Kong called Trailblazer that showcases the trails right outside of the city and kind of within the city. It's a really cool community there. And as we mentioned on last week's show, Chris and Hong Kong are going through some serious tumultuous times, and he is kind of keeping us abreast of everything that's happening over there. So just send your good thoughts to Chris and his family as Hong Kong goes through what they're going through right now. And he kind of gave us the debrief last week. We talked a little bit about it on the show, but just some good thoughts as always to our good friend Chris. Rick Bjarnason and his team at cheekymonkeymedia.ca. They're a web design company. They completely redid the gingerrunner.com website. It makes it so simple for me now, where I can just update a YouTube video and it kind of populates on the website. It's fantastic. Rick is also an ultra runner, training for some big races this summer. Bat Dog 120 is one of them. That is a brutal race.
It's a beast.
It's a beast. And finally, our good friend Brian Sands, who has done nothing but help us from the very beginning. And he has this inspirational story. He's lost so much weight and trained for his first marathon, first 50K. Currently training for additional races, Squamish, which we'll talk about a little bit tonight, because Chris will also be there. We'll be there. Just a wonderful human, and has volunteered and helped us at Tiger Claw and multiple events and everything like that. He's just a really great human. So shout out to those three individuals for making Ginger Runner Live and everything at Ginger Runner happen. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome our guest. Coming to us live from, I don't really know these days. He could technically be
in our living room.
And we wouldn't know because he's very quiet. He's very subdued. Very, very quiet man. Without further ado, it is the one and only Chris Mocko.
Yay!
Hold on 1 second. I thought for some reason States was next week, so I booked all my travel for the
Did you forget?
July.
Oh, so boy.
You guys give me just 1 sec.
The fact you thought it was over July 4th weekend, that's weird. What's up, man?
The build up to the intro is the most highest anxiety, stressful moment of my life, because I'm like, what is the one thing I'm going to start with? And I had a line prepared, but then I'm evaluating as things happen. Gus is reacting. I'm like, oh, do I say something about dogs? And I didn't know what to start with, so I hope that was acceptable. I was thinking maybe we could just do multiple intros too, if you wanted. If you wanted to do another.
Yeah. So here, let me do that, since I figure that's kind of what I assumed is bringing Chris on. Is Chris is very specific with his needs. He has a rider, what's called a rider, which is a contract that we have to sign before bringing him on, with requirements as to how he is treated, things that we do, for example, the introduction. So I'm actually just going to read off of his script here. Give me 1 second. So tonight, joining us on the show is the one and only Chris Mocko. Chris has 400,000 friends, is very popular with the ladies, and if you don't subscribe to his channel, he will find you and take your dog, Gus. Now, I read that that's very specific, Chris.
So here's another thing. I don't know when I'm on camera. I assume I'm on camera. Maybe I should have been paying more attention, because I was reacting the whole time during the intro. I did a little dance, and then I was like, I'm not on right now. No one is seeing this. So anyways, I was just going to crack my non-alcoholic LaCroix just to cheers you guys. Remarkably similar color tones to your drink.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, quite different ingredients, though.
Quite different ingredients. This is day 24 of a sober June, and it has been surprisingly easy, because I'm doing it for a very specific reason, and knowing that I'm doing it for being as prepared as possible for this weekend makes it so much easier to sacrifice something that I enjoy as much as a cold beverage. But this is doing okay for me, but I warned you, I might not be as funny because I don't have any alcohol in my system, but I'm actually more concerned that I'm going to say the same things and I don't have the alcohol as an excuse for saying those things. So take it as you want. Warning to the crowds. This is all natural.
I think you're fine. I think our audience is, they love you as it is. I mean, even just announcing today that Chris Mocko is going to be our guest, people are already like, well, this is it. This is going to be the show that ends all shows. It's going to be great. It's going to be funny. Let's catch up a little bit, because it's been a while since we've had you on the show. We have a new set. You have a new set. You have a hat. you have all these things that have been going on in your life. And
Also, speaking of the set behind you, people are commenting how my face is reflecting off your whiteboard.
That's what.
That's so cool. If it's bad, I can take it down. So
get out of my reflection. I need to be on at all times.
Okay, sorry.
I dream a dream of having a studio of my own and space and finally decorating it. I chose intentionally not to do it for this room and this broadcast because I'm actually in the process of moving. So greatest thing you can do is find your most important race of your season and then make sure that you plan a move right around that time to make it
perfect.
just a little bit more stressful. So the intent here with the whiteboard is that it's blocking up some furniture that has been dismantled in that corner, but typically there's more stuff going on in the background. And why there's two doors, who knows?
One goes somewhere, one goes somewhere else.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows what doors do?
I think maybe Rick and Morty, they had something or some cartoon where they have doors that don't actually lead anywhere. They're just like decorative. So maybe it's just a decorative door. Maybe I'm just into doors, but.
Let's talk about doors. So as I mentioned, it's been a while since we've had you on. The last time we had you on, we talked pretty heavily about some things that you had been much more open about recently and dealing with food and eating and that sort of thing. And it was a really wonderful, wonderful episode where you're very open about some of your struggles and dealings and overcoming certain things. And if those watching have not watched or listened to that episode, I highly encourage you to go do that. Since then, you've been up to a lot. So as I mentioned, you're running Western States this weekend. It's a very big race. There's a lot of publicity, a lot of media, a lot of hype, a lot of history around this race. Tell us a little bit about your history with the race, why you you did get back into this race. What was your inspiration behind going for another golden ticket and sort of your history and going into this weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm realizing I know everyone is at fault for doing this, but whenever you are FaceTiming or Skyping, you always have your camera looking. You can look at yourself. And I just always have this tendency to just drift up into the corners to be like, oh, is my hat on okay? Is my hair okay? So I'm going to tape that just so I'm not distracted for the rest of this. So I can actually make eye contact with you because it's easy to look at a gorgeous face. I have two beautiful ones here, but I'm also like, damn, my beard's coming in good.
It's funny because I can't stop looking at your whiteboard because that's where Kim's face is.
Tell me if I need to move it. I can take it down.
No. It's super great.
So the road back to Western States was not nearly as easy as the first go around. So 2016 was my first running. Yeah. I finished top 10, which meant automatic entry the following year. During that time, I quit my job and focused 100% on running, was in the best shape of my life, showed up to race day a little bit past my prime, a little bit tired, a couple things going on in my life that were out of my control that I maybe didn't show up quite as prepared and as rested as I would have liked, but felt amazing on race day, battled through the snow, got to about mile 65, and then all of a sudden something happened and my day was over and I was ready to drop at the river at mile 80, somehow figured out a way to the finish, but unfortunately, finishing does not get you a ticket back to the big dance. And that was I think I should have been more disappointed about what happened, but I was actually very proud of finishing and getting through that. I did battle a little bit of what am I doing with my life, midlife, quarter life, third life crisis. I don't know what 31, 32 is. Hopefully it's closer to a quarter than a third and definitely not a half, but decided to move to Boulder that fall, got a job at Twitter. When we last talked, I was in the middle of working at Twitter, but really struggled with my training and had a couple of kind of peaks where things were going pretty well. Actually ran really well at the Leadville Marathon, which was just this last weekend, but failed to qualify for Western States and really didn't even give myself a chance. Showed up to 2 races to qualify and just wasn't in the fitness to have any opportunity to do it. Thought maybe I'd get in the lottery. That didn't happen. Thought I could plead and beg for a spot when a couple elites dropped out. That clearly wasn't going to happen. And it was pretty tough having Western States. I shifted focus to Leadville but kind of halfway through it, realized that it just, you need to do these races for the right reasons. And I wasn't motivated to do Leadville for the same reasons that I was doing Western States. And without that excitement and the purpose of the race and the meaningfulness of it, I ended up losing focus, and a month out, dropped out of the race. Similarly, kind of jumped back into it and tried to do Javelina later in the year. And again, my mind wasn't kind of screwed on correctly. I was thinking a lot about my work situation, and again, wasn't that excited. Dropped out of that race, which was my only dropout that year and first 100-mile dropout. So just kind of a series of not great events. And I came to realize that running wasn't going well. I wasn't very happy with my work situation. And it was very tough for me at that point to be like, well, maybe I should explore becoming a full-time runner again, having known that I barely lasted 6 months the previous time I attempted that. So very risky, but I just knew that this job wasn't the right one for me, and I wasn't finding satisfaction in either areas of my life to where I wanted them to be. And it would have been fine if it was work, and I was super excited about work, and it would have been fine if running was the number one driver, but I was finding I was kind of mediocre at both and kind of just not enjoying either of them to their full potential, and that was tough. We talked last time, more serious subjects, and I found that I was kind of losing control of eating, and that was adding a ton of anxiety to me. So if for any other reason, I needed a reset for my own personal health. And that's, I had a conversation with my manager. I thought it was going to be, hey, it's just not working out. I'm not excited about the work I'm doing. But at the end of the day, I need to prioritize my health and really right this ship, even before I think about trying to qualify for Western States or anything like that. And fortunately, thankful to be in a position where I could do that, afford to do that, and have a little bit of flexibility. But really what helped out was that my parents had just moved to Arizona, and I was able to kind of leave Boulder and the start of winter and spend some time with them. And that really gave me an opportunity to reset. And it's incredible how powerful running can be, but also how quickly you can turn things around. And we'll touch on that a second time about how we got to where I am in Western States training. But, I ran a race in Cape Town, totally underprepared, but it was right after I left Twitter, and it was just a nice break vacation. I rolled my ankle 10 miles into the race and got this swollen. I was ready to drop out and somehow made it to the finish, but it was just an awful day. I lost my luggage during that trip. So just like a stressful trip. And that was the low point. And I reset from there and had a couple of great weeks in Arizona with my family, got in some really good training on brand new trails for me. And suddenly January 1st comes around, and 1, I'm feeling great. 2, I feel healthy, under control, and focused for the first time in a really long time, and decided I think I'd already signed up for Bandera, but maybe hadn't even finalized a lot of my travel, and decided, let's give this a go. And it fortunately worked out really well. I ended up getting to the lead with about 10 miles to go, like working my way up slowly throughout the day, but I didn't expect to qualify that early. And I think because there wasn't any pressure, just worked my way up and found myself in the lead. And unfortunately, the eventual winner, Tyler Green, had a second wind and caught up to me in the final couple of miles, which was incredible because I just passed him and he wasn't looking great. And was so grateful just to finish second and get that golden ticket. And it was hilarious. They had completely changed the course because of weather. And
right, I remember that.
Kind of thankful that I didn't do Tiger Claw, because I want to say 6 out of the last 7 races I've done have been impacted by weather in some format. So you don't want race directors, you don't want me showing up. But we're in this remote part of Texas, and there's no service. And there's one Wi-Fi section that's probably a 3-foot radius outside of somebody's hotel room. And so I'm standing out there just bawling my eyes out, calling my family, calling my pacer from 2017 and be like, hey, Chris, you want to pace this year? And
awesome.
It was a really special moment. I actually had a friend who was racing as well. So she finished and had a really good race. And we were able to celebrate with some terrible takeout burger and milkshake at midnight, and then caught like a 4 a.m. flight the next day. So it was a very special experience, and just huge amount of pressure and weight lifted off of me. Not just because I had qualified for this race that mattered so much, but I finally put together like a very good performance, had done the training, and it worked out because physically I don't think I was anywhere close to 100%, but mentally I was just in such a relaxed state of mind that I was patient throughout the day, and it worked out really well. And that kind of continued for a couple of months. Finished second at Black Canyon. Again, no pressure on me. So 6 or 7 guys took off from the gun, let them go, and just slowly kind of picked off runners in the second half as they faded. And if that had been my golden ticket opportunity, I probably would have had to race it differently. But because I could afford to be patient, it worked out very well. And my teammate and fellow Boulderite Matt Daniels got the win. So I'm sure his name's going to come up again in this podcast. But yeah, it was a great couple of months to start off the year.
I love hearing this story, man, because I know that sort of watching you go through what you went through last year and having those ups and downs, and you're very open with it, which I admire. I think it's a wonderful thing to see an elite athlete be quite open with not only their struggles in a race, but to be completely upfront with like, yeah, my head wasn't in the right place, or my body wasn't in the right place, or it's refreshing. And I think as a regular runner, I think a lot of us really are drawn to that sort of story. It's so easy to sort of gloss over the stories of, yeah, I got down on myself at mile 50 and I just dropped, or that sort of thing. And you don't really know what the whole story is behind it, but you've been very open with a lot of that. And I think it's quite refreshing. And so to see you sort of bounce into this year and to see what happened at Bandera is like, damn, man, like Chris Mocko has pieced together some good races this year. So that's what's really exciting. Before I get into to my additional questions with that story, Kim has been super patient. She's been pulling a lot of questions aside because we have Mocko on the show. We have a very active chat room, which I love.
I can barely keep up. Chat groom. I can barely keep up with the questions that are asking.
Yeah, let's get to as many of these as we
can. Lots of questions about Western States, of course. There was a question from Nathaniel in the chat room, and you kind of just addressed this a little bit. But Nathaniel says, since 5 recent races you've entered were rerouted, moved, or outright canceled, what do you expect will happen at Western States? Are the course officials aware of the Mocko effect?
Well, so I think the curse may have been lifted when I was supposed to run 2 races in April, and I dropped out of both of them. I don't think Lake Sonoma actually got rerouted at all, but the canyons definitely did because of snow. And I think because I didn't show up, it may have begun to lift the curse. That's what I'm thinking. And I don't want to jinx us, but based on what I'm hearing on the weather, based on what I'm hearing about the snow melt, like things might be looking a lot better than they were looking a couple weeks ago. So it's hard to be so selfish and greedy that like, okay, let's have it be extremely hot so all the snow melts, and then 3 days before, boom, cold front, let's go. But yeah. It feels like, I mean, if I'm being really particular, it looks like Thursday might be cooler than Saturday, but it certainly doesn't look like it's going to be quite as terrible as it usually is. But that being said, if I go in thinking, oh, it's going to be a cool day, and it's going to be a fast day, that's going to be an awful way to approach it, because it's still going to hurt, it's still going to feel warm, and so I need to still be as mentally focused and prepared for anything as I was planning to be.
I mean, maybe this is that Mocko effect. Maybe this change in weather is a dramatic change in weather, and that is the Mocko effect coming into play, because everyone does expect the canyons to be 120 degrees and baking and stuff. So maybe this is going to kind of mess with people's games. Maybe they're going to approach it with that. Course records are going to drop, or I'm going to run really well because it's cooler. I don't know. I don't know how many people approach states with that sort of flippantness. I really doubt that, but who knows? Maybe this will come into play here. Sorry, let's keep going.
I think to add on to that, a friend of mine who's crewing has been doing a lot of travel recently, and for maybe her last 4 flights, they were all canceled or delayed. And I would be livid if that happened. I'd be so frustrated. An hour delay just peeves me to no end, and like boarding, unboarding. But her attitude was so refreshing of, hey, as long as this doesn't happen for the States flight, I could care less. I'm going to absorb all my bad luck now.
Right.
So that for the one that really matters, it'll go smoothly. And so I think that's a great attitude. Unfortunately, very intentionally, and this is probably why your viewership's down a little bit, launched a Mocko Show episode to time with Ginger on her live. So it just went live. So most of the internet is currently probably just wrapping up the Mocko Show episode.
Let me just check the stats.
We have nobody watching.
There's no. Yeah.
I just keep having to make up these questions.
Yeah. Kim was just making up usernames. 99% of the internet is they're watching your video. Yeah, according to my internet watch.
Yeah. My internet.
I'm currently watching your video. I'm not even. I'm not even doing this interview. So meta. I'm actually watching it on your whiteboard right now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's the best. It's the best quality to watch it on. Sorry.
I have it going in the background too, because that's how I get my view count up. It's just repeat.
Gotta make that AdSense. AdSense.
Like actual sense.
And
pretty much.
In case for the 0.01% not watching, the theme of it is I was at Outdoor Retailer last week. Had an amazing time there. So fun interacting with so many people, and just overwhelming how massive of an event that is and how wasteful those booths are. But I had a great day, got a bunch of free new Nike gear, which still excites me. And as I'm leaving, I'm kind of rushing back to my car because I know my meter's about to expire, and I see the guy giving me a parking ticket, and I'm just so upset. And it's only mostly because it's just my fault, and I could have, if I'd left 2 minutes earlier, no issues. But on the way home, I just came to the realization. I was like, hey, there's literally nothing I can do. It's only, I think it was $30 ticket. It's not the end of the world. And then the crazy part of my brain, again, this is completely LaCroix only fueled thoughts. You know what? You face a lot of parking tickets during races too. And there's things that are going to suck and they're completely unexpected, and you got to figure out how to deal with them and move on without getting to a negative place as quickly as possible. And so I usually allow myself like one or two primal screams. And I think in my video, I use a good Home Alone clip when the tarantula goes on his head and he
that's one of my favorite screams in movies, because he reaches a pitch that is so unlike what's his first name? It's Stern, but what's I forget his first name. It's not Howard Stern, but it's whatever the actor's name. He hits this pitch that is like, whoa, that's good. That's good acting. Yeah. I get it, man. I get it. I hope you gave the officer a signature. Like, listen, this is going to be worth money by Monday. At least $10 or a hat. Maybe you give him a hat. Oh. So sorry, we've been so patient. Keep getting the questions.
Yeah, a question from Skylar in the chat room. Skylar asks,
"What's up, Skylar?
Now that you've trained for Western at sea level in California and altitude and in snow in Colorado, do you feel any additional benefits? Placebo effect more than anything?"
I will tell you in a couple of days. I would be lying if, it's crazy to think that I would make a major life decision like a move solely to prepare better for a race, but I'd be lying if that wasn't true. Like the first 2 years at Western States, altitude has always given me anxiety. I'm just never sure how my body's going to respond. I do know how it responds. It usually is terrible. Fortunately, for some reason at States, it's not that big of a deal because it's a good way to moderate your effort early on. And if it was like an all-out 50K, maybe different, where it's a little bit more frustrating. But I've always struggled at altitude, and still, even in Boulder, it's still hard for me. But I certainly am less nervous about it, so that's a good start. It's also a little bit hotter in Boulder than it was in even in Marin, but certainly San Francisco, so that helps. But my confidence level will be higher, but also I just know that those climbs are going to feel just a little bit easier. I think that's the biggest thing that I notice when I go to sea level is flat running probably feels about the same, but when I'm climbing, it just feels the effort level is just a little bit easier. And so I'm most excited for that, but probably most importantly, won't have that pre-race anxiety, and that's probably the most important element to it. And if that can be eliminated, great.
Awesome.
But yes, certainly if I had to trade altitude benefits and also suffering through the winters, I don't know if it's a good trade-off. The winters are tough here, and especially if you love trails, because it's just so hard to get on the trails. And a lot of people in Boulder laugh at me because I'm on the treadmill all the time, because they go out in their micro spikes and their crazy outfits, and you have to be prepared for everything. But I just don't really like being that cold. I don't love slipping on ice and snow. Like, I attempted one snow run up Mount Sanitas, and it was a week out from a race, and I twisted my knee, and I thought my season was done, and thankfully hobbled home and was better in a couple of days. But it's just after that, it's like, nope, we're sticking to the treadmill until summer comes around, and that's why a lot of my focus training during the winter months was actually on the roads, simply because I didn't want to force it in a way that I'd done the previous year, where it's just hard to do.
I mean, Colorado has had the craziest of winters this year. I mean, hearing the cancellation of Hard Rock and seeing the snowpack that is still there. They got snow this weekend in some of the high passes.
It's still snowing. It is still snowing.
That's nuts. So, I mean, I get it. You need to take some of that training to the treadmill. You got to get your runs in, and it's, putting it on ice every single day is really difficult and wears on the body and stuff like that. Let's get to another live question. You got tons.
Yeah, you just mentioned road running a little bit, and Connor Drews in the chat room says, Chris, how significant of a role do you think your road training will play in Western States?
For Western States, I think it is incredibly important. I think one of the reasons that I was first attracted to Western States without knowing it, because I didn't know that much about trail running, but there's a very small subset of trail running that is still fairly runnable. A lot of the races happen in Marin in California. But I think the allure and the direction of the sport is how intense, how much vert, how technical, how many ridge lines can we do? And I think that's exciting. It's definitely it's a completely different sport. But because I think my background is in track and road running, finding races that cater to those strengths is very important. And there are definitely some people always talk about Western States being this really easy course, but spoiler for you noobs, 17,000 feet of climbing is still a lot of climbing. And so it is important to have climbing legs and be an efficient runner on those, or efficient hiker. But there are also large stretches of very runnable fire roads and single track. And if you're able to get into a gear, I mean, I'm certainly never touching 520 pace like I was when I was racing marathons, but if 520 pace is possible for 26 miles, then suddenly 630 pace doesn't sound that terrible at all. And probably by mile 80, you think it's 630, but it's actually 730 or 8-minute pace. You're still running efficiently, and that becomes really important in the latter stages of the race.
It's crazy to even think of those paces. I know that we're in this era where we're seeing men and women race these long distances at paces unheard of, unthought of up until this point. Reserve it for the marathon distance, and beyond that, good luck keeping that sort of pace. But the fact that we're even talking about 6s and 7s in a 100-mile distance, not on a track, in mountains, at elevation, through snow, through heat, it's crazy how much this conversation has sort of changed that. How ready are you for this year's States? You had Bandera second place. You had Canyon second place. You have this really good season, it feels like, going into the big dance. So how do you feel going into it? Do you have a strategy? Tell us a little bit about where your mind's at.
Yeah. So amazing start to the year, especially considering Bandera, I didn't think I was nearly at peak fitness yet. And then for almost every race after that, I was training for the roads and didn't do very much trail specific training and didn't taper very much at all. And started with a major marathon personal best, then ran really well at Black Canyon off of 120, 140 mile weeks of training, and then capped that off with almost marathon PR, running by myself for the entire race on a windy course, and was was pretty remarkable. I mean, it was a really amazing couple of months, but I noticed basically probably March 1st, things started getting harder, and getting out for workouts and long runs became difficult. I missed my first key workout of the entire training block, and that was cause for a little bit of concern. And I knew that once I did this marathon on, I think it was March 23rd, I was going to do Lake Sonoma April 15th. And the morning of my marathon, when I should have been laser focused on prepping for that race, all I was thinking about was Lake Sonoma, to the point where I went ahead and that morning got online and canceled my hotel, emailed the race director, dropped out of the race. Like, it was causing me that much anxiety.
Wow.
And I'm so relieved that I did that, and then also decided to drop out of the canyons because I really needed a mental break. And forcing myself back to those races, I probably could have done it, but there's no way I'd be where I am right now if I had done that. And that awareness was incredibly important. And I think, if anything, the lesson from this training cycle is I don't need 12 weeks to get ready. And I got in pretty good shape for Bandera in probably 4 weeks. May 1st was probably when I really started getting serious and putting together a structured training program, which sounds crazy. It was like 8 or 9 weeks from Western States, and I was nervous as hell. I felt terrible. I was out of shape, and my parents were actually in town. They can attest to it. Probably they had a happy hour at their hotel, and every afternoon we were going over and taking advantage of their happy hour. And it was fun hanging out with my mom, having one Coors Light, and she's like, "I'm so tipsy." And I'm like, "Mom, that's water. That is water.
Mom, stop embarrassing me. It's literally water with bubbles."
I didn't really think about structured training until May, which was very frightening at the time. 2 weeks into that, I ran a race just up the road called Quad Rock. Ran horribly. Like, the only memory I have is some footage of the finish line where I'm shaking my head and look so upset, and that's never the look that I want to have. And that was a big wake-up call, so I'm very grateful I did it, but that was a wake-up call, got me a little bit more focused, but also I needed to be patient, and I shouldn't have expected that I could feel good after just 2 weeks. And sure enough, with a couple more weeks of good mileage and a couple of workouts, quality runs, by June 1st, I was feeling amazing already. And I wish I wrote down these feelings more, because it's almost unbelievable to think how out of shape I was. Like, I went on an 8-mile run one Sunday morning, and it was Claire Gallagher's long run, and she dropped me 4 miles into it, and it was flat. It was a flat run. It should have been easy. I was only going 10. I got to 4 miles. I was like, I got to turn around. And like, that was 8 or 9 weeks ago. And it's just wild to think of how different I felt even a month later.
Wow.
And, by June 10th, I was already thinking, oh my gosh, am I peaked too early? I'm already feeling so good right now. And I think the timing has just worked out so perfectly, where I don't think I didn't hit the same peak that I might have in 2017. And I certainly haven't done as many workouts. Like, if anything, I've gone to a much less structured route.
Sure.
And the reason was a lot of that marathon training just wasn't fun for me. And it was just so stressful. Every workout became this like huge burden. And like, I wouldn't do anything the night before, and I'd start delaying it further and further into the next day because I didn't have anything else scheduled. And I was like, if anything happens, I'd rather show up to Western States happy and excited about running than just slogging through every single day. And I just feel so refreshed on my outlook towards running. And I am just very excited. I was so nervous the last 2 weeks of like, don't screw this up, because you're feeling so good right now. And I'm really nervous that it's because of the no beer. I'm like, please, I don't want to run too well. I have to do this every time. But my outlook and mindset is just so positive. And maybe I don't have so many great long runs to like look at for inspiration and confidence, but just my mental state is so much better that it's gonna be exciting this weekend. I'm certainly gonna be a little bit more dangerous than I expected if things are going right.
I love that. I was like, I was ready for the next question, and well, we got to talk about that for a second. As outsiders, right? So as people who we have, neither Kim or myself have run Western States. We've been there multiple times. I've filmed it multiple times, that sort of thing, and paced and crewed. It's difficult to hear someone talk about it and talk about their training without being able to look in from the outside, having that outsider's perspective and be able to go, dude, you talk about having a terrible quad rock, you finished third and like an amazing time. So it's easy for us to kind of look at your training and go, you're totally primed. And the fact that you chose to eliminate certain races from your schedule because you felt a certain way, like that is such a good thing to do. We had Lucy Bartholomew on last week's show, and she talked about how last year she raced too much. She did really well at States, but she didn't feel like she did her best. So she raced a lot less this year going into it, thinking it was because she had applied herself to too many races and events beforehand and burned herself out. And like hearing this maturity of listening to your body, listening to your mind, and focusing on this one event, I think this is a really cool thing. And as an outsider, I can tell you, this is going to be amazing to watch you run. Because like you said, you're feeling probably a little deadly right now, pulling out the pew-pews. I'm really excited for you.
I very rarely journal. I believe journal is what adult males say, but in reality, it's a diary. The only time I do it is when I'm in a very emotionally low or emotionally high state. So if things go well, I might need to dust off the Mocko diary and share some entries, because I'm pretty sure there's like a Cinco de Mayo entry. I don't think it's specific to Cinco de Mayo, but around the early May where I was writing, I don't know if I'm going to do Western States. As important as this race is, I do not feel anywhere near where I need to be to feel confident towing the line of a 100-mile race right now. Like, out of the respect for the race and for my crew and everyone else, like, I don't know if I can do this. And it's wild. I wish I did a better job of recording those sort of moments, because just night and day from just 2 months ago to now, and I'm grateful that there was a turnaround.
I mean, sometimes that's all it takes. And you look at the guys and women who have been doing this year after year after year after year. I mean, the Ian Sharmans and the Jeff Brownings and the people who have returned and continued to really perform there. You look at their training and you look at when they start and sort of their approach to the event and stuff. And it's interesting to compare it to those who are maybe doing it for the first time or doing it with a little less experience. The dynamics are completely different, because this race really does benefit those who are patient and smart about it. I realize that Kim has a number of live questions from a live chat, so I want to get to as many as possible before we start talking about hot takes.
Yeah, lots of questions about nutrition. So A2B2 asked, Chris, what do you plan on using for nutrition this weekend?
Ooh, that's a great question. You know what?
Haven't thought about it.
You should start trying new things right now.
It's a little too far away to grab it, but I'm bragging because I have it so neatly packaged. I always procrastinate my packing, but the one thing I did do was my nutrition, so it is in great shape right now, and it's so neatly packaged. I know exactly how many gels I want at each place, but I've typically relied on gels for almost every race, typically goos. I have found, as I've aged into my middle set of 30s, that they don't sit quite as well on my stomach, and it who knows what it actually is, but I'm nervous that it's gels. And I used to do every 30 minutes, take a gel, drink some water, and I just don't think I can do that anymore. If I saw a Tri-Berry Goo energy gel, I might just vomit, because I had so many the first year of States, like so much PTSD, like I don't want to see those ever again.
I think Tri-Berry is the flavor that every runner has 20 samples of somewhere in there.
Talking about this flavor.
Yeah, because someone pulled a Tri-Berry out of there, like, oh God, I don't have any gels. I do have a Tri-Berry, and everyone just kind of went, oh, and it's because it's the flavor from 1991, first gel.
Yeah. So I think one thing I've done, for most of my long runs, I've actually shied away from too much calories. And I think just getting your body adapted to not taking in as many calories has helped, where I'm not quite as reliant on constant fueling. But that being said, it becomes way more critical when you're out there for that long. So I'll be very aware of it. I probably won't do that much solid food, but I'll try to take in some things. This is probably a good time to interject that we have a lovely pancake update. And I recently have been gifted, after a months-long battle with Kodiak Cakes, they finally responded to my email and social media campaigns. And thanks to a lot of very persistent people on the interwebs, Kodiak Cakes was like, maybe we should just acknowledge this so that these guys stop bothering, these runners stop bothering us. So they have provided me with a ton of products. I don't know how well pancakes are going to hold up during the race, but I think my mom is watching. Mom, please promise me that you'll have, albeit probably in a very soggy, wet, flappy state, have some pancakes ready for me at Forest Hill, because I'm going to have at least one in honor of Kodiak Cakes coming to the rescue here. Even these to-go things, this is like muffin mix, brownie, oatmeal. They have all these cool products now. I was just so excited. Like, I don't care if there was a sponsor who was like, hey, we're going to give you $10,000 a year and you have to send 2 tweets a month and you're going to get paid handsomely. That matters so little to me compared to the joy that I get from receiving a box of pancake mix. It is the least practical. It makes no sense. But the joy of opening this box, I filmed it because I was so excited. Like, could not be more delighted about that. So if anyone was ever thinking about giving me money, don't bother. Find pancakes, send me pancakes. It's way the joy that will bring. Like, I mean, in 20 years, this is going to be worth a lot more than a couple Benjamins anyways. Like, I'm going to sit on these until it's like gold. Gold, so.
This is from the same guy who earlier is like, I want to be a professional runner and I want to make this my living and that sort of thing. Don't even think about money. I just wants pancake mix.
My landlord is totally okay with me paying in pancakes, so that's totally fine. Yeah, at some point it'll have to work out. But
and to Mama Mocko, I definitely want to apologize for your son saying that he will be arriving soaking and floppy wet, arriving ready for pancakes.
No. Those are the pancakes that I'm expecting to be soaking.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Might have to go back in the show.
The correct word I was going for. That was a little bad image.
Soaking them in syrup, though, I mean, syrup is also known to be an endurance fuel. There's brands out there that do that. Kim loves some good maple syrup.
It's just a food group.
It's just a food group in and of itself. There's nothing wrong with just getting pancakes, soaking them in syrup, using that as a fuel source. You got sugar, you got protein, you
It'd
got
be like
carbs.
the cool down sponges when they plunge it into the ice water. You just take your pancake.
Drizzling syrup on all over. Yeah.
Again, Mama Mocko, sorry about that.
So, Mom, please have pancakes ready for me. I'm going to be eating them. They may even be handing them out. I'm not sure. We're probably going to have a station set up, a Mocko Show station. So look for these hats. There'll be maybe pancakes, but definitely beer. So if you want a free beer, the price is showing on your phone that you've texted the link to the Mocko Show to 10 of your friends, and then you get a free beer. So if you can give me 10 new subscribers, you get a free beer. So I think that's a pretty good deal.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I'm just going to look for that.
Up just for the free beer. It's going to be like Kirkland's finest, like light beer. But you asked, the serious question was, what am I fueling with? And pancakes are probably not going to be my primary strategy. I've also been fortunate.
And there goes the Kodiak sponsorship.
There is a Swedish brand called Morten, Maurten.
Oh, yeah.
And you probably know of them because almost every elite road marathoner now uses their products. This guy, Elliot Kipchoge, who I think has done it. I think he ran a good marathon. I'm not sure, just 4:30 something pace per mile. Sounds pretty good. But,
I thought it was a 4:30 marathon. That's, yeah.
One of those two. But I was very interested in trying their product and had some shipped out. And not only are their gels just they're pretty bland in taste, but just go down very easy. So really interesting consistency, but they go down easy. But the more curious products, and almost every brand has these, but I've found that they work great for me, is they have 2 drink mixes. One is a 160 calorie drink mix. So having one of those every hour, you're getting in almost 200 calories. So kind of it kind of reminds me of Mean Girls, when the girls eating the weight loss bars, but they turn out that they're actually to like give to starving children to put on weight, and Rachel McAdams blows up. You're drinking water and you're like, why am I getting fatter? Oh, it's my calorie. But they also have a 320 mix, so it's even higher caloric intake. And I think at the end of the day, States is about being able to stay hydrated and fueled, and drinking a 20 ounces, 17 ounces, and not even knowing that you're getting in over 300 calories is going to be an amazing benefit.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to stress about opening gels and all that, and it tastes fine. So
yeah, what does it taste like at the 320 calorie mix? Is it super sweet? Is it super salty?
No, I don't even know how to describe it. It's a very plain taste.
Okay, so it's not overwhelming.
Yeah, it's not overwhelming. It's not offensive. It's not strawberry or tri-berry. It's very bland, and I'm sure they have better marketing words than bland tasting product. But that's important. That's actually a benefit to a product that you need during a race. So I'll rely on that. So typically my plan, a lot of folks are willing to carry a ton of product on them because they want what they know works for them. I hate having extra weight, and at the end of the day, I'm going to have to rely on some aid stations. So typically when I see my crew, I'll grab 4 gels, refill one of my bottles with the drink mix, and then whenever I run out, I'll refill what's on the course. I think at the end of the day, it's very tough to be able to rely solely on what you have, and you're going to have to grab something at an aid station at some point, and practicing for that is important. And probably at mile 45, who knows what my cravings are going to be, but it'll probably be an Oreo. It'll probably be an Oreo, and I already know this. When I get there, I'm going to say cheat day and pick the food, because that's the joke that will inevitably come to mind when I'm there scarfing cookies. But yeah.
We'll get a microphone and a giant boombox speaker and just allow you to yell cheat day as you come in. That'd be perfect. Man, that Mocko Show.
Try and get that sound clip on
we'll
film
pull it
while we're there.
Actually, we just got it.
While we're there.
Oh yeah, we'll get that while we're there. I want to start talking hot takes, because obviously this is a big event. You are I'm really excited to see you race. I know that you're obviously very excited to race. This is a big event for you this year, and there's an incredible field of runners. Before we even start dipping our toes into this hot take session, I want to just preface all of it by saying we may not mention someone, and it's not because we don't believe that they could potentially win, just because there are 30 to 40 names on both sides, both men and women, that have the potential to place top 10, podium, and beyond. So we're going to try to do our diligence of touching on as many people as possible. All are very deserving. We may only touch on a couple of names.
Hopefully they're all over 18 as well.
Is that?
Well, you said we're going to be touching on them, and I'm like, well, as long as they're...
That's a valid point, Chris.
I was like, what is...
I still hope your mom is watching. Chris, God. She loves you. She told me from the other room. Your whole family's here. Yeah. But they're enjoying their pancakes. We made them beforehand. Soaked them in syrup. Anyways. Hot takes on States. Chris Mocko, you are, I'm assuming, fairly aware of both fields. They're both quite deep this year. Who, on the male side, are some of your favorites? Who are you looking to as potential racers that you're going to be wanting to keep up with? Are you even keeping your eye on certain individuals? Are you trying to be as not worrying about it as possible? Or who are the names that you think are going to do some really fun things there?
Well, the most fun thing for me is that half of the elite field, I will not even know who they are until the day before the race, when they kind of bring up the top 10 hopefuls and bring them up on stage. And during the race itself, I probably won't even know who half of the people are who are ahead of me. So I'll know more of their names than actually what they look like, which is always fun. I think I shouldn't follow all the chatter. Like there's no benefit to following it. It feels good to read that somebody thinks you're going to do well, but they have no idea what I've been doing training wise. Like, what if I hadn't been? I could have been making up my runs on Strava, or like again, like I could be running 120 miles, but feeling terribly mentally and just kind of forcing those miles, and you can't figure that out from Strava. And
Right.
the fact that, yeah, you're relying on information from a race that I did in January, like that's a long time ago. And so for me personally, like I told my family this for one of my, it's not a New Year's resolution, but a goal for the year before I'd even qualified was I want to show up to the line as prepared as possible. And whatever happens on race day, like so much is out of your control. And especially with the rest of the field, if everyone has an amazing day, I can finish 15th, and that's a great result. And I already know that I've won because and still a couple days, so something could happen, but I am going to be showing up as prepared as possible. And I'm almost getting choked up because that is a big deal. Like I made that commitment to my family before I even had an entry into this race, and now it's coming to fruition, and that's really exciting for me. So for me personally, I wouldn't bet on me because I don't know how I'm going to do. I would love to see myself in the top 10. I think that's a realistic goal. Finishing on the podium I think is possible, but I don't think it's gonna be possible to show up at Forest Hill on the podium. If I'm in the top 3 at the 62 mile mark, I think that's very dangerous, and I think that's typical of the race and how it plays out. Is it's unless you're feeling really good, and I mean a couple people will continue to excel, and actually before Forest Hill is usually when people blow up actually. So if you make it there in good shape, you're usually good to go. But I remember how terrible it felt last time having that really rough second half of the race. So I'm going to run as conservatively as possible, try to be patient, and trust in my race because it has worked out so many times before, and there's no reason that it shouldn't work out again. That being said, there is this guy named James Walmsley, Jim Walmsley, who is a fairly talented runner. And there's probably nobody else in the race, not even on the women's side, who like, if he runs his race, nobody can beat him. He is just hands down better than everyone else in the race. And it's very tough as a competitor to face that, knowing something has to go wrong for me to have a chance. But at the same time, it goes wrong. And he's had his issues, and maybe he's gotten those out, and he's definitely a more mature, experienced runner now. But even if you're having a perfect day, things will happen. And so much of it is out of your control. What if he slips in the snow or just gets tired? Like so much can happen. And that's true for every runner. So if there's 10 guys who have a chance to win, realistically, half of them are going to have hard days, which means you just have to hope you're in that other 5 and then try to beat the rest of those guys. But I think Jim's a name to look out for. I haven't seen much from Jared since Lake Sonoma. I raced him at Black Canyon. He certainly had a better day at Lake Sonoma. So, I mean, he has the experience and the training to do something really remarkable. And he's such a small guy. I'm just so envious of him when we're on climbs and he's just floats up there. Yeah. Like I have that scene from Lord of the Rings where they're they're going up a mountain, and Legolas is like floating on top of the snow, and Gimli the dwarf is like up to his head in snow.
That's me. I'm the dwarf.
Those guys just float. And speaking of Legolas, elegant runners, Mr. Matt Daniels has gotten some buzz for being a sub 4 miler. I mean, he has a faster half marathon PR than Jim. Like, total unknown because he's never done 100 miles before, but he certainly nailed Black Canyon and had an incredible race. And I've had the pleasure of getting dropped by him on a couple of runs here. So he's ready to go. And if he runs the smart race, which I know he can do because he's a super intelligent, experienced runner, like he's going to do something pretty remarkable. And it would be really exciting to have an upfront battle, especially for a guy who's hoping to pick off people. If there's guys battling head to head, the likelihood that they all survive, it goes like there's going to be some carnage if there's some racing up front. But I expect him to be smart at the going early on and hopefully move up with him in the latter stages. And there's Tom Evans, who's getting a lot of buzz, and I know very little about him, but apparently he was training in Ethiopia. And if you have the dedication and commitment to go to Africa to train and run with the best runners in the world, he's certainly probably going to be in pretty good shape. But again, until I've raced somebody, I really have a hard way of gauging what their style is and really how talented they are. Because I mean, there's so many races now, and it's really hard to understand someone's potential in a 100-mile until you face them head to head. And
Right.
so, I think those are some of the names up front. And Ryan Sands has won this before, but apparently he just had a kid, so that changes things. He had a bit of a rough go at Ultra Trail Cape Town in the fall, so I'm not sure how that's all going to respond. But Jared and him have both run in the 15 hours before, and you got to respect somebody who's done that once. And then you've got your old staples, Mr. Sharman and Mr. Browning, who I look at the list and I'm like, there are all of these talented runners. Steven from the Flagstaff group as well, Hirsch, yeah, Pam, I'm going crazy here. I raced him in the fall. He's a 64-minute half marathoner, super talented runner. If every athlete runs to their potential, I'm like, maybe this is the year Ian Sharman doesn't finish top 10. There are so many, the field is so deep,
right,
that wow, it's going to be, running conservatively might be a dangerous tactic if the weather plays out and everything, and it could just be the really fast day. And I hope that I'm able to adapt to that, but it's certainly possible that people don't come back in the way that they did in that really bad snow year.
I mean, that's what's interesting about good hot takes, by the way. Very, very well politicized, and you're very well spoken about all of it. I totally agree with you on all fronts. I think that this is going to be a really interesting race to follow in the fact that we have a Jim Walmsley who set the course record last year. He's coming back again. He has stated in interviews, again, I'm kind of referencing I Run Far a lot with the lists and stuff. If you haven't seen the prediction contest and things like that, you can visit irunfar.com to find out more information about kind of who people are looking at. But it's really interesting to sort of see maybe his strategy will play out differently, because maybe he just wants to win, and he sort of come out and verbalize that I just want to win. So maybe that strategy won't be to go out and put an hour on everyone up front. Maybe that'll force other people to run faster. Maybe. So my hot take is that there will be more carnage this year than people expect, because if it's not going to be super hot, if it's hot, you're expecting carnage because of the heat. I think there'll be a lot of carnage based off of just blowing up. I think people might be pushing too hard.
Because of the ability to run
faster.
In the cooler weather.
Yep, exactly. And I think that'll lead to non-heat related issues for people. So it's not I'm blowing up because I'm so hot. It's I haven't been eating enough, or I've been pushing my pace too hard, or that sort of thing. So I think that'll be really interesting. And it's the guys like Ian and Browning who I'm looking at going, they're the most consistent runners that have placed top 10 for years. And Ian Sharman's going for his 10th top 10 finish in his 10th consecutive year, and cumulative time of less than 6 days, I believe, is what the stat is. So he's going for a 6-day 10 finishes of Western States. The math, I believe, works out. I believe that's what it is. Someone in the chat room can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that is what he's going after. And if he's going after something like that, you got to be aware of Ian Sharman, because he's just going to be hunting. He's going to be making that happen. And consistent.
Yeah.
I mean, have you seen that guy's calves? He posts these photos of his treadmill. I'm like, how am I going to race this guy? I'm like, holy moly. And I mean, it's incredible. Knowing how much I struggle to consistently train, and the fact that these guys show up every year, I'm like, what? Are you guys not human?
Yeah.
Do you struggle ever? Or do you ever face adversity? Or you just have this amazing ability to just execute your training year in, year out? And we didn't even mention, my friend Chris Brown, who was kind of my dark horse last year. I'm like, he just opened a restaurant, so a little bit distracted, but also spending a lot of time on his feet, and has done some killer long runs. Did really well at 9 Trails, which was a loaded field. Jimmy Elam is a ridiculous climber, won the Canyons, and is kind of just entering the 100-mile scene. So there's so many names. Again, I feel embarrassed for not mentioning more. And
Eric Sensman, Patrick Reagan, David Laney,
Yassine.
Teammate David Laney,
Yassine DeBoon.
Tyler Green is another teammate who beat me. So it's gonna be crazy. And I think that's a great take. That is a fantastic hot take, where I'm thinking, it's not hot, everyone's gonna feel great the whole time. But the heat is almost a handicap in your favor where you just can't go any faster, and it saves your legs a little bit.
Yeah.
And as evening cools off, you're able to return a little bit. But yeah, there are very few people who are conditioned to be able to run 8-minute pace for 100 miles. Like, I don't think anyone is. And so that's going to just be so taxing on you in a very different way than what is typical at state. So it's a totally different element. And I still think there's going to be snow in the early stages.
Yeah.
And so I'm 100% prepared that our splits early on are going to be a bit slower, and anyone who has 8 station by 8 station goals, like, you need to throw those out the window until at least Robinson Flat, and that's when
Interesting.
Okay, now I can start my plan, because it's really tough to know. Because even if the snow is melted, it is going to be so sloppy.
Yeah.
Your feet are going to get so wet that it's going to be interesting how it plays out.
One thing that we'll get to a couple more live questions before we move into our after show, where we'll answer a lot more live questions, because this is when they're really starting to roll in here. The race that I'm actually really excited to follow is the women's race. I think that this is one of those years where we talk about this every year.
We say it every year that it's like the most epic women's
race ever,
talented field.
Yeah.
Because it just keeps getting better and better and better every year.
I think the women's race this year is really going to be the one to watch, because there are so many names that could potentially take this thing. Not just take this thing, but like that top 5 could be so competitive and so close that it could come down to the last. My hot take, I'll do this quickly and I'll let you talk, Chris.
Okay.
My hot take is that it's going to come down to the last 10. It's going to come down to around no hands, even potentially at no hands and beyond, which is even like towards the last 4 or 5. And that's my prediction, is that the top 3 could be divided within the last 10-ish miles.
Yeah, because I think a lot of women are patient runners, and they think out their plan a little bit more. Maybe they're a little bit more conservative up front. So I think you're right. I think like there's so many strong women that it could come down to those last 10 miles.
And you could see someone from 10th place move up to 4th or 3rd place in the last 10 miles. I mean, that's happened. And it is so cool to see happen in real time. Chris, what do you think? Hot takes on Western States, the women's race.
Okay. Well, at the end of this, because I've been towing a very political line so far and being pretty conservative about what I'm actually saying. At the end, I'll give you my real take of like, this is what's going to happen. But I think Courtney has been as dominant as Jim has, if not more, like consistently just win. Maybe dropped out of that one track race at the end of the year just because, like, give the girl a break. She's been racing the entire year, but like so dominant 2018 and so far has been incredibly successful on every type of race course, like every terrain.
Exactly. Diversity.
That being said, I think the gap between her and the next female, and not just the one female, but 4 or 5, is much closer than the gap between Jim and the rest of the men's field. I think he's still order of magnitude ahead of the rest of the field, and I can say that because I'm part of those scrubs in the second pack. But Camille, who knows? Big wild card. Who knows what she's going to do? She ran with me up the escarpment. I'm like, maybe you need to pump the brakes a little bit, girl. I wouldn't be surprised if she threw on some 4%ers for the last 20 miles and is racing a marathon in her road flats. I'll even be more specific. I think Camille's going to take it out very hard. I think Io is going to be hot on her heels because she typically goes out very strong. I've seen some photos of her and she just looks so chiseled and strong. I'm rooting for her. I think she's going to have a great day. But then Casey and Courtney and our Nike athletes, Addie Bracey is brand new to 100 miles. Brittany had an incredible Bandera, but looked so strong throughout the day. And again, this is where I had to do my research beforehand, and I just kept on finding more and more names. So I know I'm missing others, but there's going to be this group that kind of surges and starts off a little bit more conservatively, but is going to be hunting. And it's just going to be so fun to watch as those gaps inevitably shrink. And it's like, is it going to continue, or at some point, is it going to start expanding again? And that's going to be probably after Forest Hill. Actually, I don't think it's gonna be after Forest Hill. I think the the leader will be caught by Forest Hill, and the more conservative racers will have caught up to them by that point, just because the canyons, any sort of misstep in pacing gets amplified in the canyons, and if you've gone out too hard, it's gonna show up there. And then I really would love to, as someone who battled with like 12th to 7th place in my first year, like the last 20 miles was just back and forth switching places. That was so exciting for me as a runner. It also was awful because I was working so much harder than if I had an hour lead at that point. But if there is this just group of folks within range of each other where one person is excelling on the uphills and somebody has blown quads on the descents, like that would just be so great for the sport to have it that exciting and close until the end. So unfortunately the coverage it's really tough to get great coverage just because service is so bad there, right, and you get that many updates, but certainly will be good stories afterwards. And because Casey has had an experience like me of not having a great day, Eric Sensman, same case on the men's side, like I think we're going to be a little bit more patient and cautious, but also have gone through those really low points and may be able to battle through those more than others. But I think it's going to be Io and Courtney and Casey going back and forth in that final 20 miles. And I think it's going to be a phenomenal race. I hope they, actually, I wouldn't be surprised if they're flirting with top 10 in the overall as well, because Courtney almost did it last time. And
yes,
I think it's going to be a very fast day. And if the snow cooperates, I think sub 17 is definitely possible for the women. And I think all the top 10 men could be under 16 hours, which 3 weeks ago, I didn't think I was even going to shoot for 16:30 pace. I didn't think that was possible. Right. So, I think it's going to be a real fast year, and folks with a bit of a road pedigree are going to benefit from that.
So much to say. I'm trying to think.
You guys get to say something. I need more hot takes from this side of the house.
Well, my hot, yeah. Kim, we've been dying to hear your hot takes too.
Well, I was going to say my hot takes for the women's race is, and I might be a bit biased, but our local gal, extremely talented, though a lot of people are not talking about. I feel like she's off the radar. Caitlin Gerben.
Yes.
I kind of like that.
Is she a doctor too? What's her background?
She's a scientist.
Scientist. Okay.
Yeah. I like that she's off the radar. Like that's. But I didn't want to bring it up too much tonight because I'm like.
She placed second.
Sneaky. Yeah. She went from 4th to 2nd, shaved off nearly an hour.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things where you never know what could happen.
And also Lucy.
Lucy, totally. Lucy, who was leading a majority of the race last year. We just had her on last week.
She has such a great attitude and outlook.
Totally. Plays it by the snack game, which is great. My last question before we move into the after show, Chris, is course records. This has been a conversation that's been super talked about. People are talking course record because of the temperatures this year, the conditions, the snow early on was giving people hesitation to even mention course records, but because of the fast snow melt, I mean, some of the pictures from Robinson Flat today reveal that there's not a lot of snow there anymore, which is incredible. So the snow melt has been considerable. There's still snow, but the temperatures are going to be lower. The men's course record set by Jim Walmsley last year. Do you think it's touchable? That was a hot year, no snow, not touchable.
If I don't think anyone other than Jim is, I don't know if it's courageous or crazy enough to
go
start at that pace.
Yeah,
I think the conditions will set it up where it's possible, but I think runners are going to be more conservative, and Jim does have enough presence that he can dictate the race. So if he decides I want to chill, then it's going to be a chill year. That being said, when he broke the course record, from what I've been told, he was like in 20th place going up the escarpment and taking it super easy, and then decided to take off. So I think the crazy thing is, you could be at mile 60, half an hour behind course record pace, but feeling good. And then there could be something crazy that happens. If Matt Daniels and Jared and Jim are in a foot race for the last marathon, like we could see like a 2:45. It could be like the end of an Ironman kind of like 7-minute pace, under 7-minute pace last marathon. It could just be the most absolute tremendous close to a race. So I certainly don't expect the first half to be on pace, but I do expect the times as a whole to be very quick.
Very quick.
And so, like, for me, I finished 7th running just over 17 hours.
Right.
Like, that's not going to be a possibility this year. Like, Ryan Sands won in 16:20, and I don't think that's going to be top 10.
That's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Women's course record set by Ellie Greenwood many years ago, I believe 2011, was 16:47. That course record has stood for a long time and is believed to be the untouchable record. Do you think that'll be touched this year?
Yes.
That's a hot take.
Because of the way the women's race is going to play out, there will be some front runners for sure. I think that's going to push everyone to go faster. I think even Courtney knows that. She started more conservatively last time. I don't know if that's going to be possible, but I mean, I feel like she ran low 17s.
17:27.
Okay. So on a slightly cooler day, a year more experience, getting pushed. Like, I don't think people account for what a competitive race could do for these times. If there are a couple folks in either of these races, who knows what's going to happen, because it's so different when you go into the river and have a 30-minute lead. Like, sure, that doesn't feel like a guarantee, but certainly feels a lot more comfortable than seeing somebody in the raft right behind you. And so I think it's definitely a possibility that those times go down. But this is the fun thing. I watch Pardon the Interruption and ESPN shows every day, and all they do is talk about things, and they're rarely correct, and they're just hypothesizing about who's going to win the sports thing. And they never go back and like, oh, well, we were wrong and we apologize. Same with meteorologists. There's never an apology, or like they guess about the weather, and they generally have a bit more idea of what's going to happen. But it's so fun. It's really fun to talk about this. I'm sure people enjoy listening, but it's like, who knows what's going to happen? Jim could decide to walk the escarpment. Everyone else is going to be too scared to pass him, and we're going to be at like maybe the elites won't make the first cutoff because of the way they're. How funny would that be? What a hilarious.
The Ginger Runner won Western States. He wasn't even on the roster. I appreciate your candor and honesty and fun with this. I know that many of these people are your friends. Many of them will be your competitors on the day, and it's kind of one of these fun things. And I totally agree. We never really come back and talk about.
Train's coming.
I heard the choo choo choo. Is that the Mocko train? Do you live in a train car? Train break.
I'm actually in you ever read the Boxcar Children?
No.
It's about this family that lives inside of a boxcar, yeah.
And that's how tapioca's made.
So speaking of friends, I don't know if Casey's in the chat. I know she sometimes joins, but she's always been super encouraging. I have these photos of both of us from 2017 where we're both like sitting in a chair, hands in our head, just like in such a rough state. And I think both of us actually were going through pretty emotional times with either sick or friends and relatives who had just passed away. I think maybe I can't remember her situation, but like such emotional stress. That was very, very tough for both of us that year. And so I'm definitely rooting for her because we're both kind of seeking a bit of redemption. And the way that I saw her race at Bandera and then I saw her at Black Canyon in a 6 weeks time, the difference in her attitude and the confidence with which she was racing was unbelievable. So I think if there was a year for Casey to have, she's already done fairly well. I think she's done pretty decent at Western States. I think this could be a good year for her too.
Yeah.
I'm definitely excited to see her come back and think she's going to do something magical. But on the emotional front, I think the person that I'm thinking about most is Ladia, who was amazing friends with Gabe Grunewald, who just passed away. And the parallels between her story and mine, with my friend passed away from colon cancer, Heather like 4 weeks before Western States, and it's just an unbelievable. You can't account for the emotional fatigue and just how difficult and how unimportant this race suddenly becomes when something like that happens. And It was very important for me to race that day because it was a meaningful part of our relationship, and I'm sure the same is true for Ladia, because running was very important to Gabe. But if Ladia's out there and listening, like, I will be cheering for you. You're going to be the number one person in my heart throughout the day, and I really hope that you'll have a fantastic day. But just being out there, and if you're able to finish, that has to be a victory, because what you've gone through in this last month is just like, I can't even imagine. And definitely feeling for you right now, and all of the community that knew her well.
I'm really glad you said that, Chris, because that's something we've touched on very briefly on the show in the past couple of weeks. And Ladia's a friend of ours, and she placed third at Tiger Claw, and we were just incredibly proud to have her race our course. And she is so kind and generous. She took her prize money from that event and donated it straight to charities to help local trail maintenance and people that support the trails here locally. She's just that great of a person, and couldn't have said it better than you, Chris. Our support for sure. Ladia, we're thinking about you, and we'll see you there. And same with Casey and that sort of thing, the emotional stuff that they've been going through. And this race means a lot for sure to them. Chris,
and,
we can't.
I
go ahead.
saw this. I just had this on my table, and it's related. Didn't even think to bring this up, but I saw this in one of Gabe's husband's last posts that he put up, and I think it's a really good sentiment that it's going to be my motto for the day. It's not what I expected, but I'll adjust. And I mean, certainly not at the same level of magnitude that Gabe has had to adjust, but like that parking ticket thing I said, like, there's going to be things that happen to everyone out there, and you're not going to expect it, and there's no way to predict what it is going to be, but you just have to adapt out there and make the most of it.
Mr. Chris Mocko, it is an honor and a privilege to have you on the show, and you really are a special human, man. We really appreciate all that you do for the community. The fun you bring is such a wonderful thing. Your channel is just growing. You're almost at 10,000 subscribers. I want to take a second to mention that to our live viewers, to go to the Mocko Show's YouTube channel and subscribe. He's at 9,600 something. Hopefully by the end of the week. By the end of the week, maybe we'll get you to 100,000. I believe that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
I love it, man. You are, again, just such a wonderful part of this sport. It's great to have you and your personality and all of that here on the show. I appreciate the hot takes. I know that it's a lot of fun. We're going to see you in a couple of days, Chris. We haven't really talked about this on the show, but we will be down at States. I'll mention a little bit here before we end this and go into the after show. But before we do, Chris, where can people find you? Where can people follow you? Where can people keep track of Mama Mocko and everything that's going on with the crew and what's happening at States?
Yeah. So for the next couple of weeks, I still live at 31st Street in Pearl. So I assume that's what you meant.
Yeah, the specific address. That's exactly what our viewers want. Yep, great.
Yeah, because I assume when you talk about following, it's like literally physically following. I'm going to open my shade right now. There's going to be a bunch of people with binoculars out there.
They'll just be up against the glass.
Yeah. I mean, I really am proud of the energy and effort I put into the YouTube channel in the last couple of weeks, at least. And every time I think about what you do on a regular basis, every single Monday you guys are here, and it's just, I know how good it is to be on a regular schedule and commit to a schedule, and I just can't do it. And the fact that you guys do it week in and week out and are in the hundreds of episodes is just so incredible to me. So I don't know how you do it. It's similar to the Charmin effect. Like, you've done it in the YouTube world, so that's amazing, because it's not something that is easy, and you do it so seamlessly and effortlessly. But every time, I think this is my third time.
It's 27th. 27th time on the show. Yeah.
Like, I still have to pinch myself, because before I got into the sport, and even at the start of it was like, my goals are to get on Ultra Runner podcast and get on Ginger Runner Live, and the fact that I've been able to do that now a couple of times with, my last big result was 58th at Western States. Like, I've had a couple, I have this confidence that I have something great in me, and it's coming, and I still don't think I've proven myself, at least for me personally, but like being on the show is such an honor. So that's incredible. And I don't know why I got on this tangent.
It's okay. I want to interrupt you for a second to let you know that it is not because of your results that you're on the show. You do have
Correct.
amazing results. We don't bring guests on because, yes, we do bring on guests that do win and that sort of thing, but we always choose our guests based off the fact that they are making a difference or that they're inspirational to some degree, or they have personalities that are really interesting and fun and entertaining. And you check all the boxes, man. So don't think that results determine everything. And I believe that you have a big result coming. You already have a resume of incredible results. So we believe in you, and you're on the show because you are a great human, a great contributor to the sport, great personality. So don't doubt. Yeah. Also, this show is garbage to begin with. So it's not that big of an honor. But it's awesome to have you. So that being said, where can people find you?
Yeah, so most of if you search Chris, Mocko, you'll find me on most of the socials. But I actually really enjoy, I have a email address specifically set up for contact in running, and it all filters to the same folder. And I get so much excitement whenever there's a new email in there, and half the time it's spam, but the other half it's from these awesome fans. And it's great getting DMs on Instagram and talking to people there, but I feel like you can have a richer conversation over email. So you can find that on my website, mockoshow.com. There's a contact form there, or just mockoshow.com. And yeah, I'm always happy to listen, give feedback when I can. I do a little bit of coaching on the side as well. So if that's something that's of interest to you, I'm slowly adding athletes, but doing it at a very manageable rate for the time being. But at the very least, if you have any questions, I do feel like that's my best opportunity for giving back to the sport is to engage on a direct level. So never feel shy about doing that. And some of the conversations I've had, especially the more difficult conversations I've had publicly, then the follow-ups that have come from that are so meaningful that it justifies being so outspoken.
Absolutely. Our friend Chris Mocko was our guest on tonight's show. We are going to have him join us for our after show, which will be abbreviated. Just our show tonight went nice and long, which we love, especially around Western States. We got to talk all the hot takes and everything like that. So that's a good thing, Chris. Like, it's good to have a long show like this. The podcast listeners love it. It's the number one thing for long runs. People are like, oh my God, an hour and a half long podcast. So we are going to have.
My mom was like, this is going to be like 15 minutes long, right? I'm like,
add a zero. But we will have Chris join us in the after show because there's still tons of questions that Kim was awesome enough to pull aside. So we'll just rapid fire through those in the after show. If you would, and we'll tell you exactly how to do that. But first, thank you, Chris. We very much appreciate it. This is a very polite. You got it. Reminder, if you would like to join us in the after show, it is very easy to do. All you got to do is go to patreon.com/thegingerrunner for as little as $1 a month. We have that bottom level, easily accessible for everybody. It gets you access to all of our after shows previous, all of our archived, all of our current live after shows, and all of our future after shows for that month. So we encourage you to check it out if you have not already. And there's levels go up, perks, and all that sort of stuff. At the end of every episode, we like to Are you grabbing Gus? He's in this position where you can't actually lift him up under the desk without breaking the set.
He really wants me to lift him.
Can you come over here, bud? Let's get to the GR crew member. Yes. We'll do after show with Gus. So every episode, we like to end with our GR crew member of the week. Basically, we like to recognize a member of our viewing audience and our support club that has done something amazing over the last week or weekend, whether it's overcoming a hurdle or overcoming boundaries or races or goals or that sort of thing. And we like to highlight those individuals and the successes within their lives to help inspire everyone else. Kim, who is this week's GR crew member of the week?
This week's GR crew member of the week is Lee Hammond. And Lee ran his first 50 miler at the South Wales 50 miler.
Well done, Lee. I know you've been talking about that for a long time, and it's nice to see him finally get that done.
It looked like it was pretty gnarly. He posted some pictures in the Facebook group.
I remember him talking about it, and I think it is a pretty stout race. Congratulations, Lee. You are our GR crew member of the week. Everyone watching live, thank you so much. We had great viewing audience tonight, great chat room. We'll see you in the after show with Chris Mocko, and if you are in California for states, we will see you there. We're going to be down there. We have a special project that we're working on. Patreon members will learn about this project before anyone else, which is pretty exciting. Let's just say it's just going to be fun. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be neat and neat. And it's going to be a stressful 72 hours. Can't wait. Best part of States.
And make sure to look for these hats. There'll be a lot of Mocko Show crew members out there. So make sure to say hi to Papa and Mama Mocko and the rest of the gang.
Check out for the fluorescent. You can see Chris right there sitting with the hat. That is the Mocko Show hat. Keep your eyes open for those because that's the Chris Mocko crew. And you're not going to want to miss them and say hi to them. So thank you, everyone, very much for tuning into tonight's episode. We'll see you guys next week for more Ginger. What?
But not on Monday.
Oh, but not on Monday.
Yeah.
We are moving next week's episode to Tuesday. So Ginger Runner Live next week will be live on Tuesday. We'll have more guests here in the after show. At 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time as regular, but on Tuesday because we're going to be traveling back. So thank you, everyone. See you next week. Good night. Ginger Runner.